here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. Here we're looking at the Phrygian Pentatonic, 3 versions of it and some licks with tabs. If you want me to do one of these scales all over the fretboard like I've done in previous videos, just let me know in the comments. So by the end of this you should have some new licks, some scale shapes to play about with, and hopefully some new inspiration as well. My aim here is to give a very brief explanation and simple scale shape that you can use to get up and running, and then we're going to delve a bit deeper into the topic. First up, we've got the least authentic but easiest to remember shape. So if you already know your minor pentatonic, all these will be in C minor. You know, they're kind of standard. All we're doing is moving 2 notes. We're moving this note here on the E string down to the 9th fret, and again on the higher E string we're going to move the 11th fret down to the 9th. Other than that, the shape is exactly the same as a standard minor pentatonic box. And hopefully you can hear that even changing these 2 notes does already give it a much more kind of exotic or interesting vibe. So the lick I had using this scale shape was this. So to analyse what's going on there, I've got the flat 7 and I'm bending this up a tone to the root, and then playing the flat 2nd. Very similar idea, we're taking the flat 7, bending it up, the root, but this time playing the root. So it's that kind of standard rock and roll type lick, you know. But because we're doing this, it's got the more Phrygian twist. So I'm going between those. Then doing this little thing here, which the eagle-eared among you might recognise as a diminished triad. So as a slight tangent here, the reason this is a good thing to do if you want a Phrygian sound. Okay, well, to gloss over it very quickly, if you want, just play this shape. You're going to get that kind of edgy Phrygian vibe. I'll explain the reason for this now. If you just wanted the brief explanation, that's it, and feel free to skip ahead. If you want the theory, if we think about a C minor chord, we've got the root, the flat 3rd and the 5th. Because we're playing in Phrygian, that is the 3rd degree of the scale. So if we go up the scale, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, then we know off the 7th degree of the scale that's where the Locrian mode is built. And that's where you get the diminished triad. So, if we stack this diminished triad on top of our C minor, what we actually get is the C minor, that root, flat 3rd, 5th, and then building the diminished triad here, we're adding in this note and this note. So we add in C's flat 7th, and also the flat 9th, or flat 2nd. So you get this dominant 7, flat 9, no, yeah, sorry, minor 7, flat 9 arpeggio, which is an incredibly Phrygian sound because of that. Flat 9, it's just the flat 2nd but up an octave. So hopefully some of you stuck with that and understood what I was getting at. If you didn't, again, just leave me the questions in the comments. So diminished tangents aside, it is something incredibly relevant to Phrygian and getting that kind of sound. But all I'm doing after this is coming down the kind of standard pentatonic scale. So if you want the notes, the intervals even, we're going from the 4th down to the flat 3rd, then we're going from the root down to the flat 7th, 5th down to the 4th, then back up to the 5th, and then I'm bending this up a tone and a half to here, or if you want it on the same string, there. Then I take the 4th and I bend that up a tone to the 5th, adding on some nice kind of fairly wide vibrato for a kind of exotic, slightly microtonal vibe. And then this bit at the end I really quite like. So we're starting on the 5th, and moving down like at a tritone to this flat second, hammering on the 4th to the 5th, then ending on the root. And a good trick here with Phrygian is if you give the root quite a wide vibrato when you end on it, like you can even get away with almost kind of bending it up to that semitone above. It's going to sort of imply, although you're on the root, it's a nice safe note, because you're bending it so far, you're kind of hinting at this flat second, and it's going to give it that kind of exotic vibe. So if I drop a C drone in the background and just do a small vibrato versus the kind of wider one, it's got a slightly more exotic vibe to it and a little bit more edge. And as you probably noticed, when I slowed that lick down, it sounded much more like a standard minor pentatonic lick. Now, I suspect this is because our ears are used to hearing that scale, so your brain sort of anticipates it. So if you play these notes very sparsely, obviously it's going to sound a bit more minor pentatonic. Because I played the lick quicker to begin with, those notes were kind of closer together in terms of timing, so it made it sound a bit more exotic. Now, I'd mentioned there are other versions of the scale, but before we go on to them, I want to explain what I mean about saying that this one is the least authentic. It's the most easy to remember because it's a fairly straightforward shape, particularly if you know the minor pentatonic, like I sort of said already. But it's not, it changes over the octave, so if we analyse the scale we can probably see what I mean by it being not particularly authentic. So we have a root, a flat second, a 4th, a 5th, a flat 7th, then a root. Now if we were to continue with this formula, we would go up to here to get the flat second, and then well, you can tell from looking at the tab I don't actually have this note in. What I've done instead is gone for the flat 3rd, the 4th, then we go for the 5th, the flat 7th, the root, and then the flat second here. So what's happening is the scale is actually changing from the second octave in terms of the notes we're using. They're not going out of key by any means at all, but we're not using the same notes. So just for good measure, if we played that first octave an octave again, we'd get the root, the flat second, 4th, 5th, flat 7th, the root. So repeating that, we'd get the flat second here, the 4th, the 5th, the flat 7th, the root, and the flat second. And coming down. By no means is that an impossible scale to remember, but I thought if I can put the easiest version at the start of this video, those people that just want to watch for a few minutes and get some new sounds, they've got that covered. Those of us who like to dive a bit deeper can get right into the nerdy stuff. Okay, so to hit home at how moving just those two notes can change the whole vibe of the scale, I'm going to suggest that what you can do is take some of your standard pentatonic licks and just apply them to the scale. I mean, even kind of basic sequences work. So we could take something like... and a bit slower. Again, you can probably hear I'm doing that wide vibrato on the last note. Slightly out of key there as well. I'm also bending it a little bit sharper than I need to, not necessarily returning to the root. And from what I think was the least authentic version to what I consider to be probably the most authentic one. This isn't actually too dissimilar to the Hirojoshi scale, which I've done a tutorial on before, so you may want to check that out. But I call this the most authentic one because it really hones in on the key elements of Phrygian. So if you know your mode, you know that the flat second and the flat sixth are the intervals that really make Phrygian stand out. They distinguish it from Dorian and Aeolian. So if we're building a Phrygian pentatonic scale, a pentatonic scale having 5 notes in it, you know, pent being 5, we really want the flat second and the flat sixth to be in there. However, we also want the root, the flat third and the fifth, so that we can build just a nice little minor chord to play over. over. And if we look at the scale, we break down intervals, we have a root, a flat second, a flat third, a fifth, and a flat sixth. After this, we're up to the root, and it just repeats with the root, flat second, flat third, fifth, flat sixth, root, flat second. So it really has all the keynotes that we want to get that Phrygian sound just crammed in here. So the lick I played with this one was this. So this lick might sound harder than it actually is because of the displacement. A card up there for more on that. But at this bit at the start, with this overlay, hopefully you can see I'm just repeating it, but it does get very syncopated. However, it also ends up back on the beat. So this bit here, then we're kind of starting that again. So it's just that same thing repeated. And in terms of the note analysis, we've got our root. We're just going up the scale really. We've got the root to the flat second, flat third, then we're up to the fifth. Then we have the flat second. No, we don't. We've got the flat sixth, sorry. Hammering on to the root, going off. Back down to the fifth. Back down to the flat third. And then rather than going to the root here, I'm using the flat second to really kind of get into that Phrygian vibe. Going through that thing again. And then here I'm just ascending through the scale starting on the flat second. So flat second, flat third, fifth, flat sixth, root. Then we have the flat second. And then on this flat third is where we kind of start playing back on the beat again. I also switched to using hybrid picking here, lesson card up there, because I find it much easier to play this part. But what I'm doing is using pedal point. So I've got the root here, and I'm just kind of going up the scale, referring back to the root. So playing up through the scale here, but going back to the root. Alternate between them with the pick. You could hop over the strings with your pick. I just find the hybrid picking a bit easier to get this down. So if we look at the notes, we've got the root. Well, I suppose we're really starting on the flat third. And then we're going down to the root. Then we've got the fourth, back to the root. Fifth, root, flat sixth, root. Then the root, go up the octave, back down to that root. Flat second, back down to the root. Root the octave higher, back down to the lower root. Then we have the flat sixth, root once more, and then ending on the fifth. This is something I really like to do with Phrygian licks, a bit like the lesson card up there, is end a lick on the fifth degree of the scale. There's something quite haunting about it because it's a really consonant note in terms of the underlying chord. You still get to resolve the lick, but it also has a slightly alien or kind of eerie quality if you resolve it to the fifth. And if you enjoy this sort of analysis where we take like a first tier concept and then expand and develop upon it, a lot of my content is based around this approach. So if you want some of that in your feed, hit subscribe. But this final shape, which I've dubbed a mid-authentic one, because it's maybe not quite as inauthentic as the first one and not quite as true to Phrygian as the second, I've also extended this one slightly out of the box, just to remind ourselves that we don't have to play this in this one position and we could technically play it all over the fretboard. But anyway, it goes like this. So this time we'll start with the interval analysis, and we have a root, flat second, fourth, fifth, flat seventh, root. And then we're repeating the same thing. So after this root, we have the flat second, we go up to the fourth, the fifth, flat seventh, root, flat second, and up to the flat. No, sorry, then up to the fourth. So we've missed out the flat third here, so we can't construct the C minor triad using this scale, but it also means this has a slightly more suspended, maybe kind of more exotic quality as well, which was really highlighted by the lick I played in the intro there. So this one goes like this. So if we analyse this, we're starting off on the flat second. A very dissonant place to start a lick, I must admit. And we're hammering on to that fourth, pulling back off, wee bit of a stretch here, sliding down to the root. Then we've got the flat second to the root again, the flat seventh, down to the fifth. And this bit here, if you want this to sound a bit more exotic, for lack of a better term, if you pull off here, and give it a slightly sharp vibrato. You can also, if you pull off quite hard, you'll kind of bend the note a quarter tone. So rather than a kind of smooth, controlled vibrato, if you keep the note a little bit sharp, you're going to get a slightly more microtonal sound. So after that, we have another kind of trill. So basically, what you might have noticed with this is it did start with a sequence. So this thing here, originally I'd just taken that through the scale. But to make it a little bit less like an exercise and a bit more kind of melodic, I decided to join the phrases up a bit more. So it starts like that. We're going to go. Then this note's used to kind of join the next phrasing. So if we analyse that second part of it, we've gone. Then we got this fifth, hammering on to the flat seventh, going back up to the fifth, down to the fourth, back up to that fifth. Then the fourth, pulling up to the flat second, down to the root. So this is where, if we were repeating that sequence through the scale, I would have held on that note, but like I say, I opted to try and tie things together a bit more. So I went back up to this fifth, and then we have this flat second to fourth trill, down to the root, flat second, root, and a little sweep here. So I'm going from that fifth, down to the, sorry, I'm going from the root down to the fourth, then the flat second, then resolving on the fifth. Again, doing that fifth resolution, this time the octave lower rather than here, and again I just think that sounds really cool. So I suppose another takeaway from this is that sometimes less notes can actually give you a more exotic or at least a new sound. If we were just playing the full Phrygian scale, I probably never would have come up with that little lick that I really quite like. So sometimes limiting yourself or using less notes is actually somewhat counterintuitively a way to get a different sound. But yeah, for more licks, check out this playlist. For some Phrygian blues ideas, check out this tutorial. And if you got to this point and haven't yet subscribed or liked, that would be great if you could give those a click. And if you already had, enable notifications with a little bell on the side, if you feel so inclined. Cheers guys.